No, Maya, I'm not doing this again. The last time you dragged in a stray, it tore up the couch and bit the meter reader. Her mother's voice was sharp, the kind that sliced through the hush of their quiet winter home like ice cracking beneath your feet. Maya stood frozen by the front door, her small fingers curled tightly around the brass handle. She didn't speak. Not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't. The sight on the porch had swallowed her voice whole. The dog was trembling. Its fur, or what was left of it, clung in dirty frostbitten clumps to its bones. A German shepherd, once majestic, now reduced to little more than a starving shadow, its eyes pleading but proud. It didn't whimper, didn't bark. It simply stood there, as if knowing one sound might be the difference between being let in or left to die. Maya turned her head slightly, still not speaking. Her mother Amelia sighed behind her and walked back toward the kitchen. The old hardwood floor creaked under her steps. Close the door before the heat escapes, she called over her shoulder. But Maya didn't move. Not until the dog collapsed, its legs folding as if the weight of winter and the world had become too much. Then she moved, not with fear, but the urgent determination only a child with a fragile heart could carry. The door opened wide. The wind slammed into her tiny body, but she held firm. "Come in," she whispered, stepping aside. The shepherd didn't look up. Maya crouched, lifted its chin gently with her mittened hand. "It's okay now," she said softly. "I see you." She wrapped her arms around its neck, and with all the strength in her spindly frame, helped it across the threshold. The moment its paws hit the warm floor, the dog let out a breath, not a sound, just a trembling exhale, and lay down, head resting on Maya's slippers. Amelia reappeared, holding a bowl of soup. She stopped mid-step when she saw the animal on her floor, her face twisted in panic and something else, fear, maybe. But Maya looked up at her, eyes wide but firm. "She's not like the others." "We don't know that," Amelia said. "We can't afford another." "She's not," Maya cut in. She didn't even ask. She just gave up. There was a long silence, the kind where every creak of the radiator and gust of wind outside seemed to be waiting for an answer. Amelia didn't say yes, but she didn't send the dog out either. That night, Maya set out a bowl of water and a piece of toast soaked in broth. The dog didn't move for a long while. Then, slowly, with every movement a struggle, it licked the bread until it disappeared. Its ribs heaved afterward, like it had run miles instead of just eaten. Amelia watched from the doorway, her arms folded tightly over her chest. "You can name her," she said at last, quietly, "but she's your responsibility." Maya's lips pressed together. "Her name is Astrid," she said, as if it had always been that. The night dragged on, snow piled against the windows, the heater hummed old and tired. Maya lay on the floor beside Astrid, her head resting near the dog's flank. She counted the breaths, each one slower than the last, and whispered stories into the dim, flickering light. It wasn't until just after midnight, when the wind changed pitch, that Maya heard it a sound so soft it could have been mistaken for the house settling. But it wasn't. It was crying. Faint, muffled, not human. She got up, padded to the door, and opened it a crack. At first she thought she was seeing shadows. But then one moved, then another. Huddled in the snow, behind a pile of firewood, were 3 tiny bodies. Pups, Astrid's pups. And they were dying. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She turned to Astrid. The shepherd hadn't moved, but her eyes were now open, wide and wild with fear. A mother's fear. Maya stepped back out, barefoot into the snow, heart hammering against her ribs. The cold didn't matter. The snow didn't matter. All that mattered was that they weren't too late. Not again. Because something in Astrid's eyes told Maya this wasn't just about rescue, it was about redemption. Hers and maybe her mother's too. Maya didn't feel the frostbite beginning to nip at her toes. She didn't feel the ice burning her fingers as she reached down into the snow. What she felt, more than anything, was urgency. Raw. The electric urgency that surged through her small frame as she tried to lift the first pup from the powder-packed drift. They were so light, too light the smallest whimpered in her arms, a pitiful, breathless cry that pierced through the stillness like a thread snapping in the cold. Its fur was matted with frost and its tiny eyes barely opened. She looked over her shoulder toward the open door where warmth leaked out like a golden ribbon into the night, and her breath hitched. "Mama," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Help me. There's babies. She has babies." Amelia appeared at the doorway a moment later, clutching her coat to her chest, eyes scanning the dark. "What puppies?" Maya cried again, turning to scoop up the second one, this one limp but still breathing. She was trying to get them here. It was as if time finally snapped back into motion. Amelia dropped the coat and ran, her feet crunching across the snow. She knelt down beside Maya, already unwrapping her scarf, bundling the smallest pup inside it. Her breath came fast, uneven, but her hands didn't shake. "3?" she asked, barely a whisper. Maya nodded. "Get them in, now." They moved as one. Amelia took Timea, held one against her chest, and they rushed back inside, kicking the door shut with their heels. The heat inside felt like stepping into another world, to warm, to brighten. The sudden contrast made the pain of thawing fingers and frozen toes almost unbearable. They laid the pups beside Astrid, who lifted her head weakly but made no attempt to move. Her ears twitched once, and she let out a low, keening whine, part grief, part hope, all helpless love. One of the puppies didn't move. Amelia touched its belly, then pressed her ear to its tiny chest. For a moment, everything in the room hung still. Then she spoke. "This one's not breathing." Maya stared, heart plummeting into the floor. "No," she whispered. "No, please." Amelia didn't hesitate. She rubbed the pup's chest briskly with her sleeve, then cupped it in her hands and blew gently across its nose and mouth, again and again. Maya had never seen her mother like this, so fierce, so desperate. Not even when their power went out last January. Not even when the basement flooded and they lost all of Maya's old baby clothes. "Come on," Amelia murmured, rubbing faster. "Come back, come back." Astrid lifted her head slightly, a groan rattling in her throat, and then a twitch, so small Maya almost missed it. The pup coughed a tiny, wet, sputtering sound and let out a feeble squeak. Its eyes opened just a sliver. Amelia exhaled shakily, blinking hard. "There," she said, almost to herself. "There you are." Maya reached for the puppy and cradled it in her palms, tears sliding down her cheeks silently. She didn't even know she was crying until her mother pulled her close and rested her chin on Maya's head. "I thought you said no more strays." Maya whispered. "I did," Amelia replied softly. "I also said we couldn't afford kindness." They sat there together for a while, side by side on the worn rug, with the warmth of the heater ticking in the background and the slow rise and fall of Astrid's breath nearby. Maya reached out and gently placed the tiniest pup near its mother's chest. Astrid sniffed it, nudged it closer with her nose, then lay her head down beside them all, her eyes closing as her body trembled with relief. It wasn't over, far from it. The dog was still starving, the pups still weak, and they didn't have the money for a vet, let alone 5 hungry mouths on top of their own. But something had shifted, something Maya didn't have words for yet. Later that night, as Amelia tucked an extra blanket over Maya's feet, she looked down at her daughter with an expression Maya couldn't quite read, part worry, part wonder. "You knew," she said quietly, but Maya nodded. She wasn't alone. She couldn't have been walking like that if she didn't have something to protect. Amelia stood in the doorway for a long moment, staring into the living room where Astrid and her pups slept huddled together in a nest of old towels and a winter jacket. The dog hadn't taken her eyes off her children once. "Good mothers will crawl through hell if they have to," Amelia said, almost too softly to hear. "Even the ones no one notices." The words lingered in the air, settling like snow on Maya's skin. She knew Amelia hadn't just meant the dog. Sometime past midnight, Maya woke to a scratching noise, not loud but frantic. She slipped out of bed and tiptoed into the hall. The scratching was coming from the back door. At first she thought maybe one of the pups had wandered off somehow, but no, they were all there. Then why she opened the door, a crack, nothing, just the wind, the trees, the yard buried in white. But then, behind the woodpile, something moved, not small, not canine. A figure stepped into the moonlight. Tall, human, wrapped in a dark coat and scarf, their face obscured. They didn't speak, just stared. Maya's breath caught. "Mum," she whispered, loud enough to tremble in the air. Behind her, Astrid stood, not growling, but alert and outside. The stranger slowly turned and vanished back into the trees as if he'd been watching, as if he'd come looking for something or someone. Maya stood frozen in the doorway, the cold air wrapping around her legs like a warning. The trees beyond the yard whispered with wind, but the stranger was gone. No footprints, no rustle of branches, no voice calling out, just silence, thick and unsettling. Behind her, the quiet shuffle of claws on the hardwood told her Astrid hadn't gone back to sleep. The dog had risen, her thin frame now taut with something Maya hadn't seen in her before, worry, not fear. Something deeper, protective, instinctual. She moved past Maya and stepped just outside the door, nose high in the wind, scanning the dark with sharp eyes that had seen far too much. "Come back in," Maya whispered, tugging at the shepherd's neck. "Please." Astrid didn't move for a long moment, and then finally relented. Her body brushed against Maya's as she stepped back inside, one last glance over her shoulder into the night. Maya closed the door quietly and twisted the lock. Next morning came gray and heavy, the sun barely touching the frost-laced windows. Amelia found Maya asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket with Astrid lying beside her and the pups curled up like tiny commas against their mother's belly. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there watching them all with eyes that looked more tired than usual. When Maya stirred, Amelia sat on the edge of the armchair. "You left the back door open for a while," she said gently. "It was unlocked when I checked this morning." "I saw someone," Maya said, rubbing her eyes, "last night, behind the woodpile." Amelia's brows furrowed. "A person," Maya nodded. "He didn't come close, but he was watching us." Amelia didn't dismiss her. She stood and walked to the window, peering out across the snowy yard. "Maybe someone from down the road. We haven't had visitors in months." "Do you think he was looking for Astrid?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It hung in the air like a question no one wanted to answer. Later that day, Amelia made a call to a local vet she used to know. She didn't say much, Just asked if they might come by for a home visit. We've got a rescue situation, she said quietly, glancing toward the pups. No money to pay yet, but it's urgent. By late afternoon, a white van rolled into the driveway, crunching over the snow. An older man stepped out, face hidden beneath a thick scarf and cap. Dr. Felix, retired 10 years ago, still did emergency visits for people who couldn't afford a clinic. Amelia knew him from the days she worked 2 jobs and once brought in a cat with a broken leg. Inside, he knelt beside Astrid and her pups. His fingers were gentle, eyes sharp, malnourished, frostbitten paws. But she's got fight in her, he murmured. The puppies are hanging on. You've got them in just in time. He paused, glancing up. Where did you say you found her? She came to our porch, Maya said. Alone at first. Then we found the pups outside. Dr. Felix's face changed subtly. His brows drew together. Alone, yes. He reached into his bag, pulled out a small scanner. Mind if I check for a chip? Amelia gave a slight nod. The scanner beeped softly as he passed it over Astrid's shoulder. Then it stopped to pause. The look on his face deepened, something unreadable passing through it. What is it? Amelia asked. Dr. Felix didn't answer immediately. He looked at Astrid, now alert, her body tensed, though she hadn't moved. Then he met Amelia's eyes. She's chipped, registered, but not in this state. Amelia sat up straighter. Where then? He hesitated. Arizona. Maya blinked. That's almost 1,000 miles away. Dr. Felix nodded slowly. I've only seen this once before. Dogs trafficked for breeding, trained for protection, dumped when they're no longer useful, but this doesn't look like a discard. She was trying to survive. With pups traveling this far, in this condition, that takes something more. Maya looked at Astrid, who hadn't broken eye contact with the vet the entire time. Her eyes were cautious, but not afraid. Can you trace the owner? Amelia asked. I can. Dr. Felix replied, but you might not like who it leads to. After he left, Amelia sat with the paperwork in her lap. The name on the registry didn't mean anything to her, but the address, the state, and the note at the bottom, dog reported missing 7 months ago during police investigation, made her stomach twist. She turned to Maya. We may not be the first ones who tried to save her. Maya's voice was small. What if she ran from something worse? That night, Amelia made another call. Not to the registry, not to animal control, but to someone she hadn't spoken to in years, her cousin Marlene, a paralegal who sometimes worked with shelters and knew how to keep things off the record. Marlene, she said, voice low, I need help. I think this dog is running from something and someone might be coming to take her back. Maya didn't sleep. She lay in bed, eyes wide, every creak of the house sounding like footsteps. Astrid had curled up by the bedroom door, a silent sentinel, eyes always watching the dark outside. The wind rose again, and not far beyond the tree line, a man stood in the shadows reading the soft glow of numbers on his GPS screen. His lips curled slightly, satisfied he had found the chip's signal, and he was almost home by morning. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a waiting room. The kind with too many questions and not enough answers. Maya watched the sun come up through the window, but it didn't warm anything. Not the frost-laced glass, not the air in the kitchen, and certainly not the chill inside her chest that had settled there after hearing the name on Astrid's chip. Amelia tried to keep things moving. She made oatmeal, toasted the ends of the bread loaf no one liked, refilled the pup's box with towels, warm water bottles tucked inside to mimic their mother's body heat. But Astrid wouldn't leave the front door. She sat there motionless, except for the slow turn of her head every time the wind shifted, as if she knew something was coming. Something that wouldn't knock. Just before noon, Marlene called back. Her voice was tight, clipped. I don't have a full report yet, but the guy listed as Astrid's owner, he's not clean. Name's Roy Dana, ex-military contractor, private security. Got flagged last year for running an illegal breeding operation tied to guard dog sales. Police raided his property but never pressed charges. Not enough evidence, claimed his dogs were stolen. Amelia gripped the phone tighter. You say anything about a shepherd named Astrid? Just that she was missing. No proof of sale, no vet records, no photos. But get this, 2 neighbors reported hearing dogs howling for days before the raid. One of them said they saw a female shepherd digging under the fence the night before. The place got hit. Think about that. She got out. She escaped, Marlene confirmed. And she took the pups with her. Or had them after. Either way, she ran. Amelia felt her throat tighten. He's looking for her. Probably already found her. Chips like that ping quietly to networked receivers. If he hired someone to track them, he didn't hire someone, Amelia said, cutting her off. He came himself. I think Maya saw him last night. There was a long pause on the line. Then, keep your doors locked. Keep lights on tonight. And if he shows up again, don't open anything. But by the time night fell, the lights didn't feel like much protection. Shadows clung to the corners of the house like old memories. And outside, the trees swayed in a rhythm that made Maya's stomach twist. She tried to read, tried to sit with the puppies, but her eyes kept drifting to the windows, to the yard beyond the frost-glazed glass. Amelia didn't want to worry her daughter, but she moved differently now. Every footstep quiet, every movement deliberate. She kept the phone in her pocket and a baseball bat by the back door. She didn't know how to fight a man like Roy Dana, but she knew how to stall. She knew how to buy time, and that might be the only thing they had. At just past 9, the doorbell rang. One clean deliberate chime. They both froze. Amelia stepped between Maya and the front door. Astrid growled low, soft, almost inaudible, but there was no mistaking the shift in her body. Her ears were back, her tail rigid, her front paw lifted slightly, tense and ready. Amelia spoke loud enough for the door to carry her voice. Is it no answer? She moved to the peephole. Her body stiffened. Then she unlocked the chain, not the deadbolt hand, cracked the door just an inch. The porch light cast a yellow cone across the snow, and standing in it was a tall man with a military posture and tired eyes that didn't blink. He wore a thick coat, snow clung to his boots. He didn't smile. I believe you have something that belongs to me, he said flatly. Amelia didn't flinch. This isn't a drop-off shelter. It's not a negotiation either. His voice had a cold authority to it. The dog's chipped, registered under my name, and I've come to retrieve her. She's injured. So are her pups. I'll take care of them. Amelia held his gaze. Did you take care of her before? When she was starving? When she dug her way through snow and ice and birthed to get away from you? His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, calculation. She's not your property anymore, she said quietly. That's not your call to make. No, she agreed. It's hers. Astrid had stepped into the hallway, head low, teeth slightly bared. Not aggressive defense out. A mother guarding her children. And for the first time, the man at the door shifted uncomfortably. I don't think she wants to go with you, Amelia said. He took a slow step forward, but Astrid lunged it all the way. Not out the door, but just enough. Enough to make her point. The man stepped back. You don't understand, he said, tone lower now. She's a trained asset. She has value. You think this is about rescue. It's about return. That dog isn't some stray. She's expensive, specialized. And what's inside her ... matters. What's inside her? Amelia asked, voice cold. Biometric tags, muscle response training, military applications. She's not a pet. Amelia stared at him. Then she did something Maya didn't expect. She shut the door in his face. Not hard, not loud, just final. They stood in the hallway for a long moment. Outside, no footsteps retreated. No voice shouted. Just the silence of a man who wasn't used to hearing no. When Amelia finally turned to Maya, her face was pale but set. Pack a bag, she said. Something small. Warm clothes, just in case. Are we leaving? I don't know, but we're not handing her over. Astrid didn't lie down that night. She stayed awake by the window, ears tuned to the dark, and just before dawn they heard it. Not footsteps, not a knock. Glass shattering at the back of the house. The sound of shattering glass tore through the house like a scream. For a moment no one moved. Not Maya, frozen in the hallway clutching a blanket. Not Amelia, her hand still on the doorknob. Not even Astrid, who stood poised like a drawn bow, silent and coiled. Then the back door creaked, slow, measured, a boot scraping across tile. Amelia moved first. She grabbed Maya's arm and pulled her into the hall closet, the only door with a lock that wasn't glass. Astrid followed, but only halfway. She stopped in the doorway, her body blocking the entrance, and turned to face the darkened kitchen. No, Maya whispered, but Amelia clamped a hand gently over her daughter's mouth. Astrid didn't look back, not even once. Footsteps now, close, heavy, purposeful. The man's voice came low and steady through the house. You really think you can keep her? Do you know what she is? Amelia closed her eyes, pressing her forehead against Maya's. She's not yours, she whispered into her daughter's hair. Then, outside the closet door, a deep growl cut through the air like a warning shot, and then silence. No shouting, no crashing. Just the kind of stillness that makes your chest seize until a thud, flesh against wall. Then another. Something overturned in the kitchen. The sound of boots stumbling, a table leg cracking, a bark or primal wounded and then a yell. It was Roy's voice, cursing wild, get off me. Then a whimper from Astrid. And finally, a single gunshot. Maya flinched so hard she dropped the blanket. Amelia covered her, holding her tight, both of them frozen with terror. Then quiet again. A moment later, another sound. Not heavy boots, not a man, just light, faltering steps on the hardwood floor. Then the closet door clicked softly. Amelia opened it slowly, heart in her throat. Astrid stood there, chest heaving, one leg trembling. Blood smeared her left flank, but she was upright. Her face was scratched, her eyes dull with pain, but her stand still firm, still proud. And on the kitchen floor behind her, Roy lay unconscious. His head was bleeding, one hand still twitching. The gun. Amelia had only heard it, never seen it. Was on the floor, out of reach. Maya fell to her knees and wrapped her arms around Astrid's neck. You stayed, she whispered. Astrid didn't make a sound. She simply rested her head against the girl's shoulder and closed her eyes. The police came quietly. Marlene had called them before Amelia could. When they arrived, they found the intruder unconscious. The weapon unregistered, the story undeniable, the chipped dog, the bruises, the blood, the man with no right to be there. The injuries told the rest. They took Roy away in an ambulance, under police watch, and when the officers asked what they planned to do with the dog, Amelia looked them straight in the eye and said, "She's already home." The vet came again that afternoon. He stitched Astrid's wound, quietly, carefully. No one said much, not even Maya, who sat by Astrid's side, holding her paw like a lifeline. "She's a survivor," Dr. Felix murmured. "Whatever he trained into her, she chose her instincts. She protected you." "She's more than training," Maya said softly. "She's hot." The days that followed felt like a deep exhale, the kind that came after a storm when everything is still damp and raw, but the sky has finally cracked open to blue. Amelia replaced the broken window with plywood. She left the bat by the door, just in case, but she no longer moved with tension in her shoulders, and Mayashi barely left Astrid's side. The pups grew stronger, eyes opened. They began to waddle and fall and chase each other across the floor. Astrid watched them constantly, never far. But now, she let Maya join them. She allowed herself to rest one evening a week later. As the sun dipped low and spilled amber light across the floor, Maya sat beside her mother on the porch steps. Astrid was lying in the grass, watching the pups tumble around her like misfit snowballs. Maya leaned against Amelia's shoulder. "Do you think she'll ever forget what he did to her?" Amelia looked at the dog, then at her daughter. "No," she said quietly. "But I think she's learning what the opposite of that feels like." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, "I used to think we rescued her." "You did," Amelia said. "But maybe she rescued us too." They sat there until the light faded and the stars appeared, soft and shy. The house was no longer just a place. It had changed quietly, permanently. There was something in the walls now, something warmer than heat, something like safety, something like healing. Astrid never left again. She stayed through spring. Through the day the pups were adopted, each one going to people Amelia personally vetted, including a kind woman who had lost her police canine to cancer the year before. Astrid watched each pup go without panic, only a gentle nudge of her nose, as if telling them it was okay now. They would be safe. And when the last one was gone, she didn't mourn. She simply curled up at Maya's feet, let out a long tired sigh, and finally slept without one ear open. They never saw Roy again. Charges were filed, quiet deals made, but he vanished into the system. And it didn't matter anymore, because Astrid had chosen her family, and for the first time in her life, she had one that chose her back.